Now, Final Fantasy is a franchise that is new to me as of last year, but quickly has become one of my favorite franchises. I've been playing Final Fantasy games almost exclusively for the past 6 months, and one thing that helped me break into the series are videos like this one, beginner's guides and where to start. These videos are awesome, and I wanted to give my own spin on them as a new inductee into the fan base and tell you about the first Final Fantasy games I played as a newcomer to the franchise. I'm going to be talking about the first games I ever played in the Final Fantasy franchise and how good they are of entry points for other newcomers. Now, technically, you can start wherever you want, since each Final Fantasy game has its own contained narrative. All Final Fantasy games are not related. It's an anthology series, so 8 has no relation to 9 and 10, and so on. There are a few that get sequels, but those are obvious, like Final Fantasy X-2 and Final Fantasy XIII-2, but should you just blindfold yourself and pick a game at random? Probably not. So let's talk about entry points of the franchise, and let's start with the game that was my first foray into the series, the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, my opinions in this video are just that, my opinions. If you're a Final Fantasy old head and mad that I'm not saying the original Final Fantasy, just hear me out. At the end of the video, if you feel I missed something in my 3 game recommendations, leave a comment and let me know what you think the best game for a newcomer is. Now, there have been times in my life where I've looked into the Final Fantasy franchise and was interested in jumping in, and Final Fantasy VII was always on the top of the list to try first. I have a renewed interest in the games thanks to the Magic the Gathering set coming out later this year, and I wanted to get some baseline knowledge of the games before the cards got released. However, I've always had the hurdle of not being super into turn-based JRPGs, and this was the main reason why I'd never given one of the games a try. So when I saw this remake was an action RPG instead of a true turn-based RPG, I had a renewed interest, not to mention it was on sale, thus beginning my expedition into the depths of the crippling Final Fantasy addiction I now have. Take it from a recent convert. This is a good place to start, but it's not the only place to start. Just let me explain. The 7 Remake is a modern reimagining of the classic 1997 game. The original game is often cited as one of the most influential RPGs of all time, and the remake offers a fresh and modern approach to the beloved story. What makes it such a great entry point is its combination of a familiar and emotionally impactful narrative with modern gameplay design. Just to cover it briefly, the plot centers around Cloud Strife, a mercenary who joins a group called Avalanche to fight against the evil megacorporation Shinra, only to find himself entangled in a much larger, more complex conflict involving the mysterious and powerful Sephiroth. The game's combat system is one of the most significant changes from the original, offering a fully real-time, action-oriented experience instead of the traditional turn-based JRPG mechanics. Players can control Cloud and switch to other party members in real time, engaging in these fast-paced battles that blend physical attacks, magic, the iconic limit breaks, and summons. The remake introduces a dynamic active time battle system, ATB as you'll see, which allows players to pause the action and issue commands in the middle of combat. This system strikes a really good balance between accessibility and strategic depth, making it easy for newcomers to jump in, but still rewarding those who wish to master the nuances of the battle mechanics. There's even 2 settings at the beginning of the game that let you choose how you want to play the game, whether you want to focus more on commands or other things. Now, I'm generally not very good at video games if I have to rate myself. I've accepted it. I usually play games on easy mode, so I appreciate that a noob like me was able to tackle this battle system super easily. It felt very natural to start and master. I think they did a really good job with the progression of the game in that you're constantly learning and you never feel like you're at a roadblock because of your skill level. Beyond its combat, the remake is also an emotional roller coaster that builds on the original story with expanded character development and new narrative beats. Cloud, Aerith, Tifa, and others get their relationships explored in greater detail. The game is visually just stunning, including amazing cityscapes, lush environments, and beautifully rendered character models, making it easy for new players to become immersed in the world. The updated voice acting and cinematic cutscenes too really make this game an experience, ensuring that players can connect with the characters and story on a deeper level. Seriously, you will get attached to these characters, you will laugh, you will cry, and you will marvel at how beautiful the world the devs created is, both narratively and visually. The remake completely retains the core themes from the original game while presenting them in a more modern and approachable package in my opinion. Another plus for newcomers is that this game doesn't require any grinding. I'd wager to say most Final Fantasy games require you to grind a bit at some point to make you powerful enough to handily beat enemies, but that's not the case with the 7 remake or the next game I'm going to talk about. For other modern game enjoyers who aren't the biggest JRPG fans, there is another option, and it's the second Final Fantasy game I ever played, Final Fantasy 16. I can already feel myself getting absolutely roasted in the comments for this. Just hear me out for a minute on this one. Like the 7 remake, this game breaks away from the turn-based JRPG style of gameplay and embraces modern hack and slash style, much like the Devil May Cry series and the Bayonetta series, but in a more open world style setting. This clip that I'm showing right now went viral recently, highlighting the combat. And yes, the combat is that good. While the 7 remake focuses on switching characters and giving commands to others, 16 really focuses on the main character Clive and his abilities and story. Speaking of story, 16 has, in my opinion, one of the most memorable narratives in recent gaming history. I cannot overstate how enjoyable this gaming experience was for me. By the time my 60-hour playthrough was up, I was nowhere near wanting to stop playing. The story is absolutely beautiful. It hooks you from the start and has you shedding a tear by the end. You'll get attached to the cast of characters, which, by the way, have some of the best voice acting I have seen in a long time. The game is chocked full of massive scale icon battles, icons being this game's summons. Unlike other Final Fantasy games that are set in a more fantastical or whimsical world, Final Fantasy 16 features a much darker, more grounded tone that would appeal to newcomers looking for a more mature narrative. The big 3 highlights of this game truly are the story, the combat, and oh my lord, the graphics. The game is just downright beautiful. Every single aspect of this game is gorgeous. Every animation, every icon battle, every cutscene, you'll be admiring the love and sweat that went into making this game. Now, I said I was going to get roasted for talking about 16. The existing Final Fantasy fanbase was not super enthusiastic about this release, and for obvious reasons. You only control Clive, you can't swap to other party members, the combat is wildly different than most other installments, and the tone of the game is much more dark and grim. However, this is exactly why I think it could be a good entry point for a newcomer, because it is a lot closer to other popular games. The jump from playing some more modern titles to this is not that jarring, and will introduce you to the series as a whole and prepare you to move back through the franchise's catalog. Okay, let's finally talk about a classic turn-based JRPG Final Fantasy game, Final Fantasy X. For newcomers who want a more traditional Final Fantasy experience, Final Fantasy X is an excellent choice and the 3rd Final Fantasy game I've ever played. Fun fact, Final Fantasy X was the first game in the series to feature voice acting and fully rendered 3D environments. This was a big selling point for me to try out the game beyond the reasons I'll outline next. I didn't want to jump from uber beautiful Final Fantasy 16 to one of the pixel games. So after doing some research, I landed on 10, and it's a great entry point into the turn-based JRPG side of the Final Fantasy games. The game combines classic turn-based combat with a lot more modern conveniences that some of the older games don't have, offering an approachable experience for newcomers. Final Fantasy X is a fantastic Final Fantasy experience without feeling bogged down by the complex mechanics that some of the other games have. It has straightforward combat, an emotional narrative, and beautiful world building. Also, the game has been described by some as a hallway simulator, meaning that there is really only one direction you're ever headed with a clear destination. I think that makes it a pretty good entry point, as you don't have to ever wonder what you're supposed to do or where to go. And unlike other Final Fantasy titles, you don't need to grind to beat this game. This was a big selling point for me. Like I mentioned before, grinding is something that a lot of Final Fantasy games more or less require, and thankfully 10 lets you get away with just trucking through most of the game. That's not to say the game is a cakewalk. Also, there are a lot of optional bosses that are tough as nails, so if you do want to grind or complete some of the optional content in the game, there is still a grinding element waiting for you sickos out there. A quick hit on the story to the protagonist, Titus, people say it a bunch of different ways, I'm gonna say Titus, is mysteriously transported from his home city to the world of Spira after the monstrous entity called Sin attacks. There he meets Yuna, a summoner on a pilgrimage to defeat Sin and bring peace to Spira. On the pilgrimage, they learn more about the true nature of the world, and I'll leave it there. The game's themes of loss, fate, and the nature of sacrifice are explored through its characters, and the emotional stakes of the story make it easy for players to invest in the journey. It's a wonderful tale of friendship that will pull on your heartstrings in classic Final Fantasy fashion. Whether you choose one of these games that I highlighted in this video or go a different route, I'm interested to hear your entry point into the series in the comments. Like I said at the start, this was my progression of introduction to the series, so it's not the best by any means, but I hope I've helped you in your journey to dip your toes into this amazing franchise. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.